She showed up at the fair in torn clothes with a strange horse by her side. No one believed her when she said that breed no longer existed. People laughed, called it a lie, until an older man stepped closer, touched the coat, and whispered, "Pale. I've seen that symbol before." The girl trembled and the whole place fell into absolute silence, because he was about to say where that horse really came from. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment what part of the world you're watching from, because now I'm going to tell you everything. The screen door slammed behind Molly with a sharp crack. "Mom, I can't find Billy anywhere down by the creek," Molly said, her voice tight. She wiped a dusty forehead with the back of her arm. Her mother, Ruth, didn't look up from the kitchen sink. She was scrubbing a pot with more force than it needed. "That darn goat. He's probably up in the north draw again. Your dad's got the truck in town trying to get that part for the tractor. Again." "I'll go look," Molly said, already turning. "Molly," her mother's voice stopped her. Ruth finally turned, her hands dripping. Her eyes were the kind of tired that sleep didn't fix. "It's going to be over 100 degrees. Take the big water jug and be back before 6 o'clock. No messing around in those canyons." "I'm just getting the goat," Molly said. "I know," her mother said, her voice softening for a second. "Just be quick." Molly filled the old plastic jug from the tap. The well water felt warm. She put on her worn hat and stepped back into the oven heat of the Texas afternoon. The farm felt silent and too big. The wheat in the far field was thin and brown. Molly's boots kicked up little clouds of dust as she walked past the broken tractor. She knew her dad was trying to fix it. She also knew the part cost more money than they had this month. She walked for a long time, calling for Billy. The sun was a heavy weight on her shoulders. She left the flat farmland and climbed into the rocky, dry canyons behind their property. This was where the goat liked to wander. "Billy!" Her voice echoed off the red rocks and came back to her, empty. She was about to turn around when she heard it. Not a goat's bleat, a different sound, a soft, deep sigh, a sound of breath. Molly froze. It came from around a big curve of rock, in a slice of shade. She walked forward, her steps quiet. She peeked around the edge of the stone. A horse stood there. Molly's breath caught in her chest. It was the most beautiful horse she had ever seen. Its coat was pure black, not brown, not dusty, but a deep, solid black like the night sky. It was drinking from a small, muddy puddle, but it was thin. She could see its ribs. Its head hung low, tired. Then the horse lifted its head. It looked right at her. Its eyes were large and dark and calm. Molly did not move. The horse did not run. Her eyes moved down its front leg. And there it was, a white mark, clean and clear against the black hair. It was not a splash or a blur. It was a perfect shape, a circle, and inside the circle, a 5-pointed star. Molly's heart began to pound so loud she was sure the horse could hear it. She knew this mark. She had seen drawings of it. In the old book in the school library, the one with the cracked spine. Asterisk, the lost breeds of the American West. Asterisk, the Midnight Canyon horse, a breed famous for its strength, its gentle mind, and this exact mark. The book said the last one was seen more than 50 years ago. The book said they were all gone, but one was standing right here. Very slowly, Molly took a step forward, then another. The horse watched her. Its ears twitched, but it stayed still. "Hey," Molly whispered, her voice dry. "Hey there." She was an arm's length away now. She could smell the horse's scent, hot hide and dry earth. She lifted her hand, slow as a cloud. She held her palm flat. The horse stretched its neck. Its soft, whiskery nose touched her skin. The breath was warm. A feeling rushed through Molly. A feeling so big it pushed out all the lonely afternoons, all the whispers at school about her patched jeans, all the worry in her mother's eyes. This horse saw her. "You're real," she breathed. The horse nudged her hand gently. It was not afraid. Molly let her fingers trail along its neck. The black coat was smooth. She looked at the mark again. The star inside the circle. It was real. It was not paint. It was not a scar. It was hair. White hair growing from its skin. The mark of a legend. "You're all alone too, aren't you?" Molly said. The horse blinked its long lashes. Billy the goat was forgotten. The rule about being home by 6 o'clock was a distant thought. Molly knew one thing with absolute certainty. She could not leave this horse here. "My name is Molly," she said softly. She looked around the hot, silent canyon. "I have to get you home. I have to get you safe." She did not have a rope. She only had her voice and her gentle hands. She moved to the horse's side and clicked her tongue softly. "Come on." To her amazement, the black horse took a step forward, then another. It walked beside her as if they had always done this. As they walked out of the canyon, the late sun turning the rocks into fire, Molly knew her life had just changed. She knew her parents would be worried about food and money. She knew it was a terrible idea. But as she walked beside the midnight black horse with the star on its leg, she made a decision. She also made a name. "Midnight," she said out loud. "I'm going to call you Midnight." The farmhouse came into view, a small white shape in the vast flat land. The sun was an orange ball sitting on the edge of the world. Molly walked, and the black horse walked beside her. Every few steps she touched his neck, just to make sure he was still real. Her mother was on the porch. Ruth's hand flew to her mouth when she saw them. "Molly O'Connor, what in the world is that?" Ruth called out, stepping down into the yard. "It's a horse, Mom," Molly said. Her voice was tired but strong. "I can see it's a horse. Where did it come from?" "The North Canyon. He was all alone. He was thirsty." Molly stopped in front of her mother. Midnight stopped too. He lowered his head, his nose almost touching the dry grass. Ruth stared. Her eyes went from Molly's dusty face to the horse's bony sides. "Molly, we cannot have a horse. You know we can't." "I know," Molly said quickly. "But look at him, look at his leg." Ruth's eyes moved to the white mark. She squinted. "That's a funny shape." "It's a star inside a circle. It's the mark of the Midnight Canyon horse. From the books. They're supposed to be all gone." "That's a story, honey. This is just a stray. Somebody's lost Mustang." Ruth's voice was firm, but Molly saw her looking at the mark again. "He has nowhere to go," Molly said. Her voice started to shake. "I'll do everything. I'll cut grass from the creek bed for him. I'll do extra chores. I'll use my own time. Please. He just needs a place for tonight." The screen door squeaked. Molly's dad, Jim, came out. He was a tall man who seemed folded in on himself by worry. He stood next to Ruth, looking at the horse for a long time. "That's a fine-looking animal," Jim said quietly. "Terrible thin, though." "We can't feed us and a horse, Jim," Ruth said, turning to him. Her words were sharp with fear. "We can't even fix the tractor. Hay costs money we do not have." "I know it does," Jim said. He walked forward, slow and calm. He held out his hand for the horse to smell. Midnight sniffed his fingers, then let Jim rub his forehead. "He's mighty gentle." "He is," Molly said, hope lifting her chest. "He followed me all the way home." Jim looked at Molly. He saw the light in her eyes, a light he hadn't seen in months. He looked back at his wife. "It's just for tonight, Ruth. We can't turn a creature out in the dark." Ruth pressed her lips together. She looked at the horse, at her daughter's pleading face, at her husband's tired eyes. She let out a long breath. "Just for tonight. And he stays in the old tool shed, not the barn. And you are responsible for him, Molly. All of it." "I will be, I promise." Molly's words tumbled out. "Thank you. Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad." Molly led Midnight across the yard to the small, leaning shed. It was full of old junk and smelled of dust and oil. She worked fast, her energy coming back. She moved rusty tools into a corner. She found an old bucket, filled it with water from the outside pump, and brought it to him. He drank deeply, the sound loud in the quiet evening. She used an old clean rag to wipe the dust from his coat. The black hair began to shine even in the fading light. She talked to him the whole time. "This is your home now, Midnight. Just for a while. I'll get you some proper food, you'll see." Her mother came out later with 2 leftover biscuits. "For you, not the horse," Ruth said, handing them to Molly. She stood in the shed doorway watching her daughter fuss over the animal. "He's special, Mom. I know he is," Molly said, taking a bite. "He's a horse," Ruth said, but she didn't leave. "He is beautiful. I'll give him that." She paused. "You look at that animal the way I used to look at the stars when I was your age." Molly looked up. "How did you look at them?" "Like they held all the answers," Ruth said softly. Then she shook her head, the practical mom coming back. Just be careful, baby. The world isn't always kind to girls who look at the stars or at special horses. I will be, Molly whispered. After her mother left, Molly sat on an old crate in the shed as full dark came. She listened to midnight breathe. She felt a happiness so big it was almost a pain in her chest. For the first time in a long time, she did not feel invisible. This huge, quiet, magical creature saw her. He trusted her. She knew it was just for one night. But as she sat there in the dark, a plan began to form in her mind. People needed to see him. They needed to know he was real. If they knew, they would help. They would understand. She thought of the big county fair in Amarillo. It was only a week away. Every kind of animal was there. People would be there. If she could just get midnight to the fair, everything would change. The idea grew in Molly's mind like a seed in dry earth. It wouldn't let go. Every morning for the next 3 days, as she cut tall grass by the creek for midnight, she thought about it. Every evening as she brushed his shining coat, she practiced the words in her head. On the 4th morning, she found her parents at the kitchen table. Her dad was looking at a pile of bills. Her mom was drinking coffee, staring out the window. "The county fair in Amarillo is on Saturday," Molly said. The words came out in a rush. Her parents looked at her. "I know," her dad said. "They've got the signs up all over town." "I want to take midnight," Molly said. The room went quiet. Her mother put her cup down. "Molly, no." "Why not? It's a fair for animals. They have horse shows. People bring all kinds of animals. Those people have trailers and money for entry fees and nice saddles," her mother said. Her voice was not angry, just heavy. "We don't have any of that. I don't need a saddle. He can just walk. And I saved some money from helping Mrs. Flores weed her garden last month." Molly pulled a few crumpled dollar bills from her pocket. "It's $7. That might be enough." "It's not about the money, honey," her father said gently. "It's about, well, those people. They're not always kind if you don't have the right things." "That's exactly why I have to go," Molly said, her voice getting stronger. "If they just see him, they'll know. They'll know he's special. They won't care about my clothes. They'll see the mark and they'll understand. They could help us." "Help us how?" her mother asked. "I don't know," Molly admitted. "Maybe someone will want to, I don't know, write about him or take his picture. Something. People help special things, don't they?" Her parents looked at each other. Molly saw the silent talk that passed between them. "It's a long drive to Amarillo," her dad said. "Over an hour. We don't have a horse trailer." "Mrs. Flores," Molly said quickly. She had thought of this. "She has that old trailer for her donkey. She said I could borrow it if you said yes. She said she'd even drive us. She's going to the fair to sell her pies." Her mother raised an eyebrow. "You've already talked to Dolly Flores about this?" "I just asked about the trailer," Molly said, biting her lip. "I didn't say yes." Jim O'Connor leaned back in his chair. He looked at his daughter's determined face. He thought about the black horse out in the shed, an animal that seemed to have stepped out of a dream into their hard life. "Let her take the horse, Ruth." "Jim, if it's a stray Mustang like we think, nothing will come of it. She'll see that. It'll be a lesson," he said. "And if it's something else, well, shouldn't the world know?" Ruth sighed a long, deep sigh. She looked at Molly. "You will listen to Mrs. Flores every second. You will not talk to strangers. And if anyone is mean to you, you come right back to the trailer. You understand?" Molly's heart soared. "Yes, I understand. Thank you." The next 2 days were a whirlwind of work. Molly cleaned midnight until his coat shone like polished stone. She practiced walking with him, getting him used to following her lead with just a soft rope around his neck. He was calm and steady, his big dark eyes watching her every move. She laid out her best clothes, her jeans with only one patch, and a blue t-shirt that was faded but clean. She found an old brush and spent an hour trying to smooth her wild hair into a neat braid. Early Saturday morning, Mrs. Flores's old truck rattled into their yard, pulling the small, rusty donkey trailer. Mrs. Flores was a round woman with a loud laugh. "Ready to show the world your mystery horse, Mia *," she called. With her father's help, Molly led Midnight up the ramp into the trailer. He went in calmly. "You be good for Mrs. Flores," Jim said, squeezing Molly's shoulder. "And be good for Molly," he said to the horse, giving him a pat. The drive felt endless. Molly sat in the truck, watching the flat land turn into slightly less flat land. Amarillo rose up in the distance, bigger than any place Molly had ever been. The fairgrounds were a chaos of noise and color and smell. There were shouts, music from a loudspeaker, the scent of fried food and animal pens. Molly's courage almost left her. It was so big. "The horse area is over there," Mrs. Flores shouted over the noise. She pointed to a row of big, clean barns. "I'll be at the baking pavilion. You come find me in 2 hours, not a minute later." Molly nodded, her throat tight. She led Midnight out of the trailer. Immediately, people stared. They stared at the beautiful black horse. Then their eyes moved down to Molly's old boots and faded shirt. She saw their looks change. The smiles faded. The whispers started. She lifted her chin. She held Midnight's rope tight and walked toward the big barns, toward the sounds of other horses. She just had to find the judges. She just had to show them the mark. Then everything would be okay. The big barn was cool and shadowy inside, smelling of hay and clean straw. Horses stood in rows, their coats brushed to a high shine. Their owners wore crisp shirts and new jeans, talking in low voices. Molly felt every eye turned to her as she walked Midnight down the center aisle. The whispers followed them like a trail. "Where'd that kid come from? Is that a Mustang? Look at her boots." Molly's face grew hot. She kept her eyes forward, looking for a sign or someone in charge. She saw a man with a clipboard talking to a woman with a tall brown horse. The man wore a badge on his chest that said "Judge." Molly took a deep breath and walked toward him. "Excuse me, sir?" The man with the clipboard turned. He had a wide, smiling face, but his eyes were busy. "Yes, miss? Are you lost? The petting zoo is that way." "No, sir. I'm here for the horse show. This is my horse, Midnight. I need to show you something." Molly's voice was thin but clear. The man's smile didn't change. "The entry deadline was 2 weeks ago, honey. You can't just walk in." "I'm not walking in. I just need you to see." Molly's hands were shaking. She bent down and pointed to the white mark on Midnight's leg. "Look, it's the mark. The star inside the circle. It's from the Midnight Canyon horses. They're supposed to be extinct." The man leaned over slightly, then straightened up. He chuckled. "That's a nice bit of mud, or maybe some paint. You kids and your stories." "It's not paint," Molly said, her voice rising. "It's his hair. It's real." Her voice carried in the quiet barn. More people stopped to watch. A tall man in a sheriff's uniform detached himself from a group and walked over. He moved like he owned the ground he walked on. "What's the trouble here, Bill?" the sheriff asked the judge. "No trouble, Sheriff Dale. This young lady here seems to think she found a ghost horse." The judge laughed. Sheriff Dale looked at Molly. His eyes were sharp. He looked at Midnight. His gaze paused on the mark. Then he let out a loud, booming laugh that echoed in the barn. "The Midnight Canyon horse? Good Lord, child, that's a campfire tale. My granddaddy used to tell those stories. They're gone. Wiped out 50, 60 years ago." "But the mark," Molly said, her hope crumbling like dry dirt. "Probably a scar," Sheriff Dale said, waving a hand. "Or a brand some cowboy put on for a joke. That there is just a plain old Mustang, a skinny one at that." He looked around at the gathering crowd, playing to them. "We got real championship horses to judge here, not dusty canyon ponies." People in the crowd laughed. It was not a mean laugh, but it was a dismissive one. It was the sound of adults who knew better. Molly felt her whole body shrink. The heat in her face turned to a cold, hollow feeling in her stomach. She had been so stupid. She had brought her dream here, and they had laughed at it. She looked down at her worn boots, tears blurring her vision. Midnight nudged her shoulder gently, but she couldn't even look at him. She had been so wrong. "Come on now," Sheriff Dale said, his voice a little softer but still firm. "Take your animal on home. The fair's no place for make-believe." Molly nodded, unable to speak. She pulled lightly on Midnight's rope to turn him around. The crowd began to drift away, losing interest. The show was over. That's when a slow, shuffling step sounded on the concrete floor. An old man stepped out from behind a post. He was tall and bent, wearing a hat that had lost its shape years ago. His face was a web of wrinkles. He didn't look at the sheriff or the judge. He only had eyes for the horse. He walked right up to Midnight, his movements slow and careful. He didn't ask permission. He just reached out an old, gnarled hand and laid it gently on the white mark on the horse's leg. His fingers traced the circle, then the star inside it. The old man's whole body went still. His face, which had seemed dry and tough as old leather, seemed to change. The color drained from it. He looked up at Molly, and his eyes, a faded blue, were wide with a shock so deep it looked like pain. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out at first. Then he whispered words so quiet only Molly could hear them. "I've seen this mark before." His voice was rough as stone. "I put it there." For a long moment the old man didn't move. His hand stayed on the white mark. He looked from the horse to Molly and back again, as if he was seeing a ghost. "You... what?" Molly whispered back, her tears forgotten. The old man straightened up slowly, his joints cracking. He cleared his throat. When he spoke again, his voice was a little louder, rough, but clear enough for the nearby people to hear. They had stopped drifting away. They were watching again. "My name is Walter Briggs," he said. He wasn't talking just to Molly now. He was talking to the barn, to the past. "I was 28 years old. I worked for a rancher named Clive Whitlock. He was a hard man." A few people in the crowd nodded. They knew the name. Sheriff Dale, who had been turning to leave, stopped and turned back. His face was suddenly alert. Walter kept his eyes on the mark. Clive Whitlock had the last herd of Midnight Canyon horses. Everyone wanted them. He decided the only way to make them really valuable was to make them disappear, to make people think they were all gone forever. He took a shaky breath. He ordered me to take the whole herd into Boxcar Canyon. A box canyon, walls on 3 sides. Then I was supposed to set dynamite at the entrance. Seal them in to die. A woman in the crowd gasped. Molly felt her own breath catch. "I drove them in," Walter continued, his voice dropping. "I could hear them breathing behind me. I set the charges. I had the plunger in my hand." He looked at his empty, wrinkled hand as if he could still see it. "I couldn't push it down. I just couldn't." He looked back at Midnight. There was a young mare in that herd. She was about to have a foal. She was looking right at me. I scared the herd back just for a second. I made a gap. I let her run. She shot past me and up into the high, hidden rocks where no one goes. I set off the dynamite behind her. I sealed in the rest. I did that, but I let her go. The barn was utterly silent now. No one laughed. "I found her 2 days later," Walter said. His eyes were distant, seeing it. "Deep in a crack in the earth no map shows. She had her baby, a little black foal just wobbly on its legs." He reached out and touched the star and circle again. "I took my hot branding iron, not the ranch brand, my own mark, a star inside a circle. I put it on that baby's leg, a promise to myself that I hadn't killed everything beautiful that day." He finally looked straight at Molly. His eyes were wet. "I thought they died out anyway. I checked for years, but I never saw a sign. I figured the canyon was too hard, or wolves got them. I carried that secret for 50 years, until today." He gestured to Midnight. "This horse, this is a direct descendant of that foal." The line didn't die. It hid. A murmur swept through the crowd. It was a sound of wonder, of belief. People leaned in to look at the mark with new eyes. It wasn't paint, it wasn't a scar. It was a brand, put there by this old man half a century ago. Molly felt the world tilt. Everything she had believed was true. The books were right, the legend was real, and this quiet old man was the key to all of it. She looked at Walter, and she didn't see a stranger anymore. She saw a man who had held a secret as heavy as a mountain for his whole life. Then a new voice cut through the murmuring. It was hard and sharp. "Walter Briggs." Sheriff Dale stepped forward. His friendly smile was gone. His face was tight and his eyes were narrowed. He looked from Walter to the horse and a strange, hungry light came into his eyes. "I remember my granddaddy talking about you," Sheriff Dale said. His voice was low, but it carried. "He said you were the one who lost him his fortune." He took another step, his boots loud on the concrete. "He said you failed to follow orders." Walter did not look away from the sheriff. "Your grandfather's orders were wrong, Dale. Some things aren't meant to be destroyed for money." Sheriff Dale's laugh was short and cold. He spread his hands wide, speaking to the crowd as much as to Walter. "Now let's all be reasonable here. Stories are fun, I love a good story, but the law is the law." He turned his sharp eyes on Molly. That horse is evidence. It's a relic from my family's lost herd. That makes it stolen property, historical theft. Molly's hand tightened on Midnight's rope. He's not stolen. He was alone. I found him. You found him on land that's been in my family for 100 years, Sheriff Dale said smoothly. It wasn't true, but he said it with such certainty that some people nodded. That makes him mine. Now hand over the rope, young lady. No, Molly said. The word came out quiet but solid. Sheriff Dale's friendly mask slipped completely. His face hardened. I wasn't asking. He took 2 quick steps forward and reached for the rope in Molly's hand. Molly did not think. She stepped sideways, putting her own body between the sheriff and Midnight. You can't have him. For a moment, Sheriff Dale looked shocked that she had disobeyed him. Then his face flushed with anger. He grabbed her arm, not hard, but firmly, to move her aside. That's enough now. The moment his hand touched her, Midnight moved. The big black horse did not shy away. He did not panic. He stepped forward, past Molly, his head swinging high. He let out a deep, rumbling snort. Then he reared up. His front legs rose into the air, towering over Sheriff Dale, who stumbled back in surprise. Midnight did not strike out. He did not come down on the man. He simply reared up, a massive, powerful shadow, and placed himself as a shield between Molly and the sheriff. Then he settled back on all 4 feet, stamping one hoof firmly on the ground. He lowered his head, his eyes fixed on Dale, a clear warning. The crowd gasped. This was not the action of a scared or wild animal. It was a deliberate act of protection. The connection between the girl and the horse was suddenly, vividly real. Sheriff Dale stood frozen, his face pale, then red with fury and embarrassment. See that? That's a dangerous animal. He was protecting the child, Dale, Walter said. His voice was stronger now. He moved to stand beside Molly, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. He was tall and stooped, but in that moment, he seemed to stand very straight. Anyone with eyes can see that. The people murmured in agreement. They had seen it too. The laughter from before was gone, replaced by a low buzz of outrage and wonder. Sheriff Dale looked around. He saw the crowd turning against him. He saw the old man and the girl standing together with the legendary horse. He knew he was losing control. He pointed a finger at Walter. You're interfering with an officer, and you, he glared at Molly, are obstructing justice. This isn't over. He turned and barked at a deputy standing into the barn entrance. Roy, go get the truck and the horse trailer from the station. Now! He turned back to Molly, Walter, and Midnight, his jaw tight. You're not leaving this fairgrounds with that horse. It's county property now. Walter's hand squeezed Molly's shoulder. He bent his head close to her ear. His voice was a low, urgent rumble. We have to run, right now. He's not going to let us walk away. Molly looked up at him, her heart pounding. She looked at Midnight, who was still watching the sheriff, his sides moving with quick breaths. She looked at the crowd, a sea of confused faces. She nodded. Walter's hand moved from Molly's shoulder to her elbow. His grip was firm but not hard. Stay right with me, he whispered. Then he raised his voice, loud and clear for the whole barn to hear. You're wrong, Dale, and everyone here knows it. As he shouted, he pulled Molly gently backward. Midnight followed them, his steps careful. The crowd, still focused on the argument between Walter and the sheriff, instinctively parted a little to give them space. Don't you let them leave, Sheriff Dale roared at his deputy, who was still standing by the door, confused. That was the moment. Walter turned, still holding Molly's elbow. Now, he said, and they moved. They walked fast, not running, out of the big barn and into the blinding afternoon sun of the fairgrounds. The moment they were outside, Walter sped up. To the west parking lot. The old blue Ford truck with the dented horse trailer. That's mine. They weaved through people carrying prize pumpkins and cotton candy. Molly heard shouting behind them. She didn't look back. She focused on keeping up with Walter's long strides and keeping a tight hold on Midnight's rope. The horse trotted beside her, not causing any trouble. They reached the parking lot. It was a sea of cars and trucks. Walter pointed. There. It was an old truck, its blue paint faded by sun. A small, rusty 2-horse trailer was hitched to the back. Walter fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. He unlocked the trailer's back ramp and swung it down. It made a loud, metallic groan. Get him in, quick, Walter said, his eyes scanning the lot behind them. Molly led Midnight up the ramp. He hesitated for only a second, then walked calmly into the dark trailer. She fastened the rope to a metal ring. "It's okay, boy. It's okay." She scrambled out and Walter shoved the ramp closed, locking it with a heavy bolt. "Get in the truck." They jumped into the cab. The seats were cracked and hot from the sun. Walter turned the key. The engine coughed once, then roared to life. He threw the truck into reverse, then into drive, spraying gravel. Molly looked out the side mirror. She saw Sheriff Dale and 2 other men run into the parking lot. The sheriff was pointing right at them. One of the men, a deputy, ran toward a white truck with a sheriff's star on the door. "They're coming," Molly said, her voice thin with fear. "I see 'em," Walter said. He steered the old truck onto the main road away from the fairgrounds. He drove fast, but not so fast it would attract more attention. Molly kept watching the mirror. Soon she saw the white sheriff's truck pull onto the road behind them. A second later, red and blue lights flashed on its roof. No siren, just the silent, spinning lights. "He's got his lights on," Molly said. "He wants us to pull over," Walter said. "We're not going to do that." He pressed the gas pedal down harder. The old truck shuddered but picked up speed. They left the edge of Amarillo and hit the open highway. Flat, dry land stretched out on both sides. The sheriff's truck stayed right behind them, matching their speed. "He's not stopping," Walter muttered. He sounded more focused than scared. "He won't use his siren out here. Doesn't want more people involved. He just wants to follow us." "Follow us where?" Molly asked. "Wherever we're going. He thinks we'll lead him right to the rest of the horses." Walter's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "We have to lose him before we can go anywhere near those canyons." He took a sudden sharp turn off the paved highway. The truck bounced onto a dirt road, a cloud of dust billowing up behind them. The sheriff's truck followed, its lights flashing in the brown cloud. "He knows these roads too," Walter said. "But I know the old ones, the ones not on the map." They drove for what felt like an hour, twisting and turning on smaller and rougher dirt tracks. The sun was lower in the sky, casting long shadows. The sheriff's truck was still there, a persistent white speck in the dust behind them. Walter looked at the gas gauge. He looked at the darkening sky. He looked at Molly's frightened face in the dim light of the cab. "We can't outrun him in this truck," he said finally. "Not all the way. We're going to have to go on foot." Walter swung the truck off of the dirt track and onto a patch of hard, flat ground dotted with scrub brush. He drove behind a large, crumbling rock formation and killed the engine. The sudden silence was loud. "We walk from here," he said, already opening his door. "Grab that canteen behind the seat." Molly grabbed the heavy metal canteen. She jumped out into the cool evening air. Walter was already at the back of the trailer, undoing the bolt. The ramp fell with a soft thud on the sand. Midnight stood calmly inside. Molly went up and took his rope. "Come on, boy." The horse followed her down. He seemed relieved to be out of the trailer. Walter pulled a large canvas bag from the truck's cab. He slung it over his shoulder. "Food, a first aid kit, a flashlight. Not much, but it'll help." He looked at Molly. "It's going to be hard walking, and we have to move quiet." "I can do it," Molly said. Walter gave a short nod. He pointed west where the land rose into a maze of dark canyons. "That way. The sun's almost down. That's good. Harder for them to see us." They started walking, Midnight between them. The ground was rough, full of rocks and prickly plants. Molly watched her feet, careful not to trip. She could hear the distant sound of an engine. It stopped. A car door slammed. "They found the truck," Walter whispered. "No talking now. Just walk." They moved faster. The light faded from purple to deep blue. Stars began to appear. Walter didn't use the flashlight. He seemed to know the way by the shape of the hills against the sky. They entered the mouth of a canyon. The walls rose up on both sides, making the world feel narrow and close. The sandy floor was easier to walk on. The only sounds were their footsteps, Midnight's soft hoof falls, and the distant cry of a night bird. After a long time of walking in the dark, Walter held up a hand. They stopped. Molly listened. At first she heard nothing. Then far behind them, she heard a voice. It was too far to make out words, but it was a man's voice. Then a beam of light swept across the top of the canyon wall ahead of them. A flashlight. Sheriff Dale and his men were in the canyon. Walter motioned for Molly to follow him to the side. They pressed against the cold rock wall, deep in the shadows. Midnight stood still, his dark coat making him part of the night. They watched the beam of light dance in the distance. It didn't come closer. The voices faded. "They're searching the main wash," Walter breathed. "They don't know where to look. Not yet, but they will. We need to get to higher ground, a place they won't think to climb." They moved again, leaving the sandy floor. Walter found a steep, rocky path leading up the side of the canyon. It was hard. Molly had to use her hands to pull herself up. Midnight followed with careful, sure steps, his head low for balance. They climbed for what felt like hours. Molly's legs burned. Her breath came in short gasps. Finally, they reached a wide, flat ledge partway up the canyon wall. A small trickle of water seeped from the rock, creating a tiny, muddy pool. "Here," Walter said, his voice full of relief. "This is a safe spot for tonight. They won't find us up here." He shrugged off the canvas bag. Molly sank to the ground, her back against the rock. Midnight dipped his head and drank from the muddy pool. Walter handed Molly the canteen and a package of crackers. She drank and ate, the food tasting better than anything she could remember. "Where are we going, Walter?" she asked quietly. "Really going?" Walter looked out over the dark canyon. "To the place I let that mare go. A hidden canyon inside these canyons. A place called Solitude Box. If any of them survived, that's where they'll be." "Do you think they're still there?" Molly asked. Walter was silent for a long time. "I don't know, child. For 50 years I thought they were gone. But I was wrong once today already." He looked at the midnight, a dark shape in the starlight. "He's proof. Where there's one, there might be more." Molly hugged her knees to her chest. She was scared and tired, and her feet hurt. But for the first time, she wasn't just running away from Sheriff Dale. She was running towards something, a real secret, a hidden place. She fell asleep listening to Midnight's steady breathing, a soft sound in the vast, quiet dark. The sky was just turning from black to deep gray when Molly felt a nudge on her shoulder. She opened her eyes. Midnight's nose was inches from her face. Walter was already up, rolling his blanket. "Dawn's coming," Walter whispered. "Time to move. They'll start searching again with the light." They ate the last of the crackers and drank from the seeping spring. Walter led them off the ledge and down a different, even steeper path. The morning light made the red rock walls glow. They walked for hours, the sun climbing higher and getting hot again. Molly was thirsty and her mouth felt like dust. Walter shared the last of the water from the canteen. "Not much farther," he said, but he sounded unsure. They followed a dry riverbed that twisted like a snake between high cliffs. Walter stopped often, looking at the rock formations, his eyes searching for something he remembered from half a century ago. "It should be here," he muttered, more to himself than to Molly. "A split in the west wall, like a crack in a giant's door." Just when Molly thought they might be lost, Midnight lifted his head. His ears pricked forward. He let out a soft, low whinny. Walter held up his hand. "Listen." From somewhere ahead, muffled by rock, came an answering whinny. It was faint, but it was real. Midnight whinnied again, pulling gently on the rope. "He knows," Molly said, her heart leaping. "He smells them." Walter's old eyes lit up. "He's leading us. Let him go." Molly loosened her hold on the rope. Midnight walked forward with purpose. He left the dry riverbed and headed straight for a wall of solid rock. As they got closer, Molly saw it wasn't solid. There was a narrow opening, just a dark slit, hidden by the shadow of a huge boulder. It was so small she would have walked right past it. Midnight walked into the shadow and disappeared into the crack. Molly and Walter hurried after him. The crack was so narrow they had to turn sideways to slip through. The rock was cool and close on both sides. They walked for 20 paces in near darkness. Then the rock walls fell away. Molly blinked. She stepped out of the crack and into another world. They were in a canyon, but unlike any she had seen. The floor was covered in green grass. A small, clear stream trickled down the center, sparkling in the sun. Cottonwood trees with golden leaves grew near the water. The air was cool and sweet, and there were horses. Near the stream, a group of horses lifted their heads to look at the strangers. There were 5 of them. Their coats were all the same pure, deep black. They were sleek and healthy, their bellies round from the good grass. One of them, a mare, took a few steps forward. She looked at Midnight. She looked at the white mark on his leg. She whinnied, a sound of welcome. Midnight answered. He walked toward the herd, his steps slow and respectful. The other horses gathered around him, sniffing him, touching noses. It was clear. They knew him. He was one of them. Molly stood frozen, her hand over her mouth. She could not speak. Walter stood beside her, and when she looked up at him, she saw tears cutting clean tracks through the dust on his old cheeks. "They're alive," he whispered. His voice cracked with emotion. "All these years, they made a life here." They watched as the horses moved together, Midnight now part of the group. He fit perfectly. This was his family. This was where he belonged. Molly felt a joy so huge it made her dizzy. They had done it. They had found the hidden herd. The legend was not just one horse. It was a whole family. She looked around the beautiful secret canyon. It was perfect. It was safe. Then she looked back at the narrow crack they had come through. It was the only way in or out. A cold feeling pushed aside the joy. If they had found it, someone else could too. Sheriff Dale was still out there searching. He wanted this. He wanted all of it. The hidden canyon didn't feel like just a sanctuary anymore. It felt like a trap. They did not have to wait long. The sound was a scrape of boot on rock, then a muttered curse. It came from the narrow crack in the canyon wall. A shadow moved in the slit. Then Sheriff Dale stepped through into the green grass, his uniform dusty and torn. He blinked in the bright light, his eyes wide. Behind him, 2 more men came through. Deputies. They looked around, their jaws slack with amazement. Sheriff Dale's eyes found the horses first. They swept over the small herd, the black coats, the healthy animals by the water. His gaze was hungry. Then he saw Molly and Walter standing between him and the horses. A slow, triumphant smile spread across his face. "Well, I'll be," he said, his voice full of satisfaction. "Walter Briggs, you old fool, you led me right to it." He took a few steps forward. The deputies followed, looking less sure. "This is all mine," Dale said, spreading his arms to take in the whole canyon. "My family's legacy. Every single one of these animals. You've been trespassing, and you've been harboring stolen property." Walter stepped forward. "This isn't property, Dale. This is a miracle, one you had nothing to do with." "The law says different," Dale snapped. He looked at his deputies. "Cuff the old man. We'll sort this out in town. The girl can come with us, and we'll get trucks up here to collect what's mine." The deputies hesitated. They looked at the peaceful horses. They looked at Molly, a small, dusty girl with defiant eyes. They looked at Walter, an old man standing straight for the first time in years. Molly moved. She did not run. She walked forward and stood right in front of Sheriff Dale. She was not hiding anymore. Her voice, when she spoke, was clear and strong. It carried across the quiet canyon. "You are wrong." Dale laughed, but it sounded forced. "I'm the sheriff, kid." "That doesn't make you right," Molly said. She pointed to the horses. "They don't belong to you. They never did. Your grandfather tried to kill them all for money. Walter saved them. They belong to themselves. They belong to this place. You don't get to just take beautiful things because you want them." She turned to the 2 deputies. "You know this is wrong. You can see it. He doesn't want to protect anything. He just wants to own it, like it's a car or a new saddle." The deputies shifted their feet. They looked at the ground. One of them, a younger man named Roy, shook his head. "Sheriff, she's just a kid, but look at this place. It's special. It's valuable," Dale corrected, his face turning red. "Now do your jobs." The older deputy, a man named Hank, took off his hat. He wiped his forehead. He looked at Sheriff Dale, then at Walter, then at Molly. He sighed. "My job is to keep the peace, Dale. This ain't peaceful. This is just greedy. I'm not doing it." "Me neither," Roy said softly. Sheriff Dale stared at his men. His authority, which had always been as solid as a rock, crumbled right there in the green grass. He was alone. "You'll be out of a job by sundown," he shouted. "Maybe," Hank said. He put his hat back on. "Come on, Roy. Let's go wait at the truck." The 2 men turned and walked back toward the narrow crack in the wall. They didn't look back. Sheriff Dale was left by himself. His face was a storm of rage and defeat. He looked at the horses, so close and so untouchable. He looked at Molly and Walter, standing together like a wall. He had no handcuffs, no men, no power here. With a final furious glare, he turned on his heel. "This isn't over," he snarled, but the words were empty. He stalked back to the crack and squeezed through. Gone. The canyon was silent again. Then Midnight walked over and nudged Molly's hand up with his nose. Walter let out a long, slow breath. "You did it, child. You stood him down." "We did it," Molly said. She felt tired to her bones, but a good tired, a peaceful tired. They stayed in the canyon for the rest of the day. Walter showed Molly the best grazing spots, the cleanest part of the stream. It was decided. They would tell people, the right people, people who would protect the canyon, not exploit it. Newspaper writers from Amarillo, good ranchers who cared about history. Walter knew a few. As the sun set, painting the high walls orange, Molly knew it was time to go home. Her parents would be sick with worry. "I'll come back," she whispered to Midnight, putting her arms around his neck. "I'll come back all the time." Walter drove her home that night. When the old farmhouse lights came into view, Molly saw two figures run out onto the porch, her mom and dad. She got out of the truck. Her mother crushed her in a hug, crying. Her father held them both, his own eyes wet. Later, after all the explanations, Molly sat on her own porch. The night was quiet. She could smell the dry earth, hear the crickets. It was the same as before, but she was not. She was not invisible. She had stood in front of a sheriff and a crowd and spoken the truth. She had helped save something magical. She had a friend in Walter and a promise to keep with a hidden canyon. Molly O'Connor looked up at the stars, brighter tonight than she had ever seen them, and she knew she would never look at them the same way again.